As we all know, the Ravens have made a living signing free agents after the first wave of free agents, and this year is no different. During the first initial wave, the Ravens had one of the worst free agency periods in memory. However, with signings like ODELL Beckham, the Ravens have been able to extract talent after the first initial wave of free agents. Today, we're going to name 5 additional free agents the Ravens should sign in order to maximize that talent in the second wave. And first, we have to talk about someone who's been with the Ravens before and has shown his value to the organization, and that's Yannick Ngakoue. Yannick Ngakoue does a lot of good things, but also has some weaknesses that are preventing him from being signed. Okay, sacks and QB hits is the one thing that Yannick Ngakoue is great at doing. He always is in the backfield. Strength and frame allows him to make those kind of plays. However, that same strength and frame for some reason disappears and we really don't know why, but it's the reason why he's been on 6 to 4 years. Now, the money that he wants may not be what his worth is currently, but we do know that he has the ability to get sacks, be hits. Also, at the age of 28, it's important to take him in, and he still can have a lot of great years left after an initial contract. Currently, his skill set is not one of a complete player. However, the Ravens need pass rush. And even in a down season for Yannick Ngakoue, he was still 11th in sacks with 12 on the season. 12 sacks would be great for the Ravens. We can plug that in, especially with some of our younger players being dependent on getting that pressure in the current Ravens system. Now, there are other players who have been with the Ravens that I still think the Ravens should keep in-house, and is one of the remaining free agents, and of course, that is Marcus. We don't need to spend a lot of time on Marcus Peters because we all know as Ravens fans, well, he had a down year last year, but in my opinion, it was because he was coming off of it. Now, is he one of those players that you can just stick on a receiver and go man coverage one-on-one down the field? Absolutely not, especially against some of the best in the game. And that was what the Ravens were often doing. Whether it was by the offense teaming it up or the Ravens just having trust in that ability, they were putting Marcus Peters one-on-one against the likes of Tyreek Hill and Ja'Marr Chase. Now, is Marcus Peters that kind of cornerback? Absolutely not. And the one thing that he can do is get interception. Again, last year was a down year, and I do not want us as Ravens fans to completely judge him based on that so year. He was coming back from injury, and I do think he is one of the best corners in the game when it comes to getting turnovers and making sure the ball is out of the offense's hands. However, if we're going to play him, we have to play to his strength. There has to be a little bit more zone coverage involved, and there has to be recognition that he may need help against the top receivers in the game. He's not the Marcus Peters of old. And so all that is 100% important for what the Ravens are trying to achieve this year. Now, I do think they should sign him. Again, the number that I believe he wants is not the number that they can sign him at, and I think that is the stalemate. However, if we do sign him, he can just go right back in the number 2 corner slot. And by chance, if there's another cornerback on the roster that outperforms him, I still do think that he provides some excellent spot minutes. And he also has that kind of swag that you do want young cornerbacks to have. However, it's a decision whether that swag is worth the negative parts that come with his game. So we'll see, but I still do think he is one of the best players in free agency at the cornerback position. Now, if the Ravens want to go something different, there's another cornerback I believe the Ravens will like that plays more in the style that we're used to seeing the Ravens play, and that is Rock Ya-Sin. Rock Ya-Sin is a physical corner, super physical corner at the point of attack, but also his greatest strength is ability to play man coverage, especially man coverage at the line of scrimmage. That's something that the Ravens in the past have loved to do. Now, with our new defensive coordinator, it's been a little bit different than the days of Wink Martindale, but Rock Ya-Sin has the ability, I think, to be the number 2 cornerback on this and be really good at it. He will always have tight man coverage, which will help us, especially if we cannot generate a pass rush this year. But again, he's shown that he's also a number 2 cornerback at the highest level. He may not be a number 1, but at the highest levels, number 2 is what he's great at. He can take the second best receiver and often shut them down. On this current list so far, I do think Rock is the most seamless fit, as he will be the player that can come in and do exactly what the Ravens want him from day one. Also, last year he was rated as having a good season by Pro Football Focus, which is always helpful when you're going to sell somebody to a team or to other players. This is something that I think will help the Ravens maintain that physical, dominant defense that they're trying to maintain, as long as they're able to keep other players around, like Patrick Queen, for an example. Now, when it comes to actually signing back some great pieces, the Ravens were not able to do that. Specifically, Calais Campbell is gone. So the Ravens revamped their defensive line. And an easy way to do that is to go get Poona Ford. Now, Poona Ford is exactly what Ravens are using. Big, strong people up front at the nose tackle position that can sometimes shade a little bit to the left or to the right. And at the age of 27, Poona Ford is still young enough to get the job done and even dominate. When the offseason first started, NFL.com had Poona ranked as the 13th best free agent. And the fact that he's still in the market is really surprising to me in a league where people up front and being able to pressure the quarterback is something that is still important. And really, Poona Ford is in the top 25 percentile of defensive tackles who can pressure the quarterback. He's something the Ravens desperately need. The only issue that I do see with the Ravens is kind of the fit, because the Ravens currently have someone who does a lot of things that Poona does well. We know we have Michael Pierce. Michael Pierce does a lot of the same thing Poona Ford does, being able to get penetration on the defensive line from the inside position. Honestly, you don't need two of those guys. However, the talent may be too great for the Ravens to just say no to. And honestly, I would give it a look, especially if I do think I can revamp the line of Calais Campbell. However, there are a lot of things that you can do to revamp a defensive line, especially when it comes to the problem of generating pressure. And one of the best remaining free agents throughout the history of the NFL at doing that has been Frank Clark. Now, Frank Clark has a lot of great things you like about him. One, he's a winner. He's the Chiefs. He knows how to win. He knows what it's like to play in pressure situations. Also, consistently has been one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. Frank Clark has been able to do it in a myriad of ways. Frank Clark has been able to play in a myriad of positions based on the needs of the Kansas City Chiefs. Frank Clark is great. However, Frank Clark is not as young as he used to be, and that's one of the main reasons he is still available on the free agent market. Now, he played a lot for the Chiefs and has more than 50 pressures in each of the last 2 years. However, on the role of the Ravens with the young bodies we currently have, he can actually decrease that and hopefully increase his ability to make plays. Same thing that happened with Calais Campbell. Calais Campbell went from an every down kind of guy to taking breaks, which helped them become one of the best players on our defensive line. And honestly, he may have been the best defensive lineman we had in the time that So again, we have the recipe to make sure that Frank Clark is successful. His ability to be on the edge and help us get pressure. He'll be rotational with all our different outside linebackers, and whoever's having the best game can get in and make a play. So I do think this is one of the best options that the Ravens can have, because it won't be expensive and he will get you pass rush instantly as soon as the game. Lastly, pass rush is important. However, it's also important to be able to protect the quarterback, and our last choice for the Ravens to look at, the remaining free agents, is Dalton Risner. Now, Dalton Risner came to fame when he pushed his backup quarterback on Christmas Day on TV. However, he is the very least an above average guard. And I know that might not sound like high praise, but in a league where all of the talent at offensive line is more shallow and shallow each year, it's important to just get good offensive linemen and grab them. Now, Dalton Risner is at the very least a good offensive lineman. Yes, he was on a bad offensive line last year. Yes, they could not at all protect Russell Wilson. Yes, he has some fault in that. When it comes to affordable O-line talent, I think Risner is at the top of the list. He will be a starter. The only question is whether Pat McCary is ready to take that step and become a dominant guard in this league. But I do honestly think that we have a chance to get Dalton Risner. And if we get him, he'll fit perfectly into our offensive line, especially if we continue with that run-based style that we really, really love. It's also important to note that though last year he didn't play great, he only allowed 3 sacks. He played 900 offensive snaps and had 1 penalty. That's the kind of offensive lineman you want if you're not trying to sign a star, you're trying to sign a good player. You want to sign a Joe, someone who gets in there, does his job, and goes home. I think he's a great fit. So you guys let me know what you think in the comments below. Are there any free agents I missed? Please let me know. Like, subscribe. Again, we're Ravens family here, so please, we want all Ravens fans to subscribe. Thanks, and go Ravens.